laughed. When my friends called him a beta at brunch, he changed their mind that night. I never should have. I never should have done it. I thought that nothing could get back at me. I thought my secret was perfectly safe. I never thought that I would end up this way with no one and nothing left for me. My husband has vanished with everything we've ever owned, both individually and collectively. He vanished with our savings and all the documents of the house, and even sold the car. He left absolutely nothing for me, and he had somehow managed to change the deeds of the house to his name, and now the house is on sale and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Ethan wants to ruin my life totally, and it's all my fault. I made him into the brutal person that he is right now, and I made him want to do nothing else but make me suffer. It's all me, and I regret it deeply. My name is Ivana, and I'm 33 years old, and I've been married to my husband Ethan for 4.5 years now. We have no kids, and although we kept trying for one, we had none, especially after we discovered that I had some complications that could threaten any pregnancy. The problem is quite bigger than that, though. Like I wrote before, my husband has completely vanished, and I have no idea where he may be right now. It's all my fault. Life hadn't always been like this between Ethan and I. We dated for 3 years before we eventually got married. I met Ethan at a party that a friend had forced me to. It was Ethan's younger sister's birthday, and she decided to celebrate in grand style and invited everyone she knew, and that friend of mine had been one of them. He forced me to go with him as his date, even though we were merely good friends. But my good friend had left me to hang out with his cooler friends, and I was left alone to socialize with people I barely knew. I was sitting in that chair wondering how to make my escape without being noticed when Ethan approached me and we started talking. He made me stay through the party by talking about the things that really weren't my problem. My first impression of him was that he was boring, but he managed to get my mind off things for a while with our conversation. At that time, I was trying to get over a messy breakup with my ex, who had left me for a richer and older woman. He even made away with the loan I borrowed from my company for him, and I almost got fired. At the time when I met Ethan, I was working in my company with no pay at all, just so I could get the loan paid, and it was horrible, because I wasn't even over him already. I kept scrolling through social media and stalking the new wife to see their wedding pictures. It was that hard for me getting over him, so I really didn't pay any mind to Ethan at first, other than the fact that his boring conversation, which sounded weird, made me laugh. He definitely thought himself interesting because he asked for my number by the end of the night, and I gave him just to keep him happy and to stop him from bugging me. After that, I totally forgot about Ethan. I even ignored his text at first too, until I bumped into him again at the company where I worked. He was the person that we had to work with on a particular project, and I was surprised. Ethan again started pestering me for a date, and I finally agreed after being convinced by my friend to go on a date with him just for fun. Ethan did try to make the date interesting, and from then on, we went on little dates. And when we finally finished the project we were doing with him, Ethan finally asked me out officially, and I agreed just to see how things went. Well, apparently things went far, because I married him. Although I wasn't in love with Ethan throughout the duration of our relationship, I just was comfortable with him. He made it easy to relax with him, and before I knew it, 3 years passed by and I was being proposed to on my birthday. I accepted because I thought maybe that was the right thing to do, and not because I felt any inclination to get married. But Ethan just made it very easy to just be with him. He didn't stress me like my ex had. When we started living together after a year of dating, Ethan never insisted I cook. In fact, he cooked more than I did, and he never complained. He took me to see his parents and siblings when we were about 6 months into the relationship, and he insisted on seeing mine too to get their blessings. He wasn't like my ex, who clearly wasn't interested in me like that, and only introduced me to just a friend of his despite the fact that we were together for more than a year. Ethan was quite intentional, and he made me happy, so my thoughts at first had been, why couldn't I marry him? But eventually that thought seemed to dissipate, especially after marriage to him. Ethan didn't change, no. In fact, he was more of a gentleman after the wedding and never complained or cheated on me. He loved me and was always showing that he did. But it was just me. I got tired of seeing him easily. Ethan was this sort of man who avoided conflicts. I mean, he avoided them a lot. Whenever we had any issues, he was quick to apologize even though he wasn't at fault. Being used to my ex who never apologized and made sure you did the apology after guilt tripping you into it, It was relaxing at first being with a man who never wanted to fight with you, but then it became rather annoying to me. I wanted to fight and let it maybe last a day, and then we would have hot makeup sex like I had done with my ex every time we fought. But Ethan wasn't like that. It made him seem too easy. It made it seem to me that he couldn't even act like a real man. Even though he had other admirable qualities, that and the fact that I was starting to get dissatisfied with him sexually made him seem weak in my eyes. I don't know why I started feeling like that. I was cool with the fact that he didn't have dangerous or rough sex because I liked how gentlemanly he treated me in bed, always making sure we never used hard surfaces, so I wasn't sore the next day, and always asking if I was okay when he's inside me, even though he knew I wasn't some virgin. It was cute, and I liked it at first, but it started to become really annoying when he wouldn't stop asking if I was okay and if he didn't hurt me every time we had sex. I was getting frustrated by the end of the second year together as a married couple, and I confided in my friends about him. I regretted it at first because of how much they laughed and mocked him from the way I described everything that was happening. But when I kept complaining about his weakness in front of them, and then they had seen firsthand how he treated me like I was some glass cup that had the handle with care tag on it, they believed me. Now that I think of it, I think they were just envious of me having such a man. Sam had a boyfriend she lived with at that time, and he cared nothing about her, just came home to have sex and sleep off the alcohol he was always oozing of each time. Eva was also married, but her husband was always flirting and sleeping with anything in a skirt, and she even gave him 2 kids, thinking he would change once the responsibility of the 2 kids came in. But it became even worse because he apparently couldn't even stand kids crying. I was the only one with a perfect relationship, but I was stupid not to see it. I thought that they understood what I was going through having an over-caring husband, and I kept complaining to them about him. We went to a party, and although Ethan was talking to a client, he kept looking back and asking me if I was fine, and I rolled my eyes each time he did. I had some tests done that morning at the hospital because of how I was feeling, and even though I knew it was just the flu, Ethan had insisted we get medical attention, and they had some tests done when Ethan kept insisting on them. But then, the tests had only confirmed what I assumed it to be. And at that time, while I sat with my friends and was talking to them, he still kept staring at me to make sure I was all right. My friends kept teasing me and laughing at me, and it all just made me angrier. I fought with him when we got home that day, so he would stop treating me like a child, and of course Ethan hadn't let the anger simmer before he was apologizing again. It became a thing between my friends and I to mock Ethan each time we met. We came up with different names to call him. One time it was whipped, and another time had been a thane, as in to imply he behaved like a woman instead of being a manly man. And over time, we came up with more interesting and more vulgar names. But then, everything had really taken an ugly turn when I met him. Joe. Joe was a co-worker, but we were in different teams at work. I never ever noticed Joe before, even though the single girls and even the married ones fawned on him every time. I didn't see him as anything else other than a co-worker whom we barely spoke to. But for work reasons, we were both selected to work together on a project, and we did. Joe started making advances at me, and I ignored it at first. I even ignored my own feelings that seemed to be developing for him. He was quite handsome, and working with him made us even closer. I thought of Joe to be my definition of my manly man the more we worked together. He was strong and impatient and had this energy that just drew you to him and made you notice him. I tried as much as possible to keep things between us professional, but there was only so much I could do, especially since I had already started becoming sexually attracted to him. I noticed the bulge of his muscles through his neatly ironed clothes when he worked, and I noticed how he pursed his lips when he needed to think about something. I was noticing everything about Joe, and it became really difficult to rein in my feelings. I couldn't tell anyone about how I was feeling with Joe. I felt ashamed that I was having those kinds of thoughts with another man other than my husband, and I tried to keep it all in, but Joe was starting to notice me. Well, I thought he was, or maybe not, but I really thought he did when he started catching me staring at his chest more times than one, and the way I always catch my breath whenever he stands up because of how tall he is. I thought maybe my feelings were quite out in the open for him, but apparently not, because when I made the first move that evening at the office, he was very surprised and made me feel embarrassed, but had quickly rectified that. That day, we made some mistakes in the proposal we were to present on Monday, and since we didn't work on weekends, we decided to stay back that evening after work to correct the mistakes and also make new changes. I had called Ethan to inform him that I would be late, and he offered to pick me up when I was done or stay awake until I was back, and I refused. It made me irritated, especially when I saw Joe making a call and telling someone whom I assumed to be his girlfriend that he wasn't coming home early without giving any other explanations. And afterwards, the room just suddenly grew hot, especially with Joe's rolled sleeves to reveal his very light arm while he worked. He had removed his suit and tie and had only his shirt, which was open at the top, and with his sleeves rolled like that, it made it difficult for me to concentrate on work. The several times he had to call my attention back to work probably made him feel like I had family issues, because he asked if I wanted to confide in someone about my feelings, and instead of taking his suggestion, I demonstrated it. I kissed Joe, and he had been so shocked and pulled away from me at first. I felt really embarrassed and tried to make up some excuses, but then Joe dragged me back to him and kissed me senselessly. Before I knew anything, I was clad naked against the office desk with Joe, whose shirt was still on, and his trousers and shorts only halfway down his legs while we had sex. Joe didn't just have me against the desk. He managed to maneuver me with him still inside me to the wall and then to the mini couch in the office. We literally tainted my office with our muffled moaning sounds and connected bodies. We couldn't make much noise to avoid the security guards walking in on us, so Joe covered my mouth with his hand, and I didn't even complain when his hand tightened around my mouth when he wanted to climax. It was everything I've ever wanted: hot, dangerous, and rough sex. I saw the marks of his hand on my skin while putting my clothes back on. And then there was the one on my mouth done by his hands on it, but I easily covered that with some concealer and powder. I waited for that feeling of guilt to settle in particular after I got home to see Ethan dozing off on the chair, probably already too tired from work and still being so stubborn about waiting for me. Instead of feeling blessed and pitying him, I felt irritated, and I just woke him up and went to take a shower and laid in bed beside an already sleeping Ethan, unable to sleep, just thinking about the night I had with Joe. Because of our activities that night, we hadn't finished the work we were doing, so Joe texted me that night, and I saw it because I was still awake, thinking about our time together, and asked if I would like to meet up at his place the next day to finish up work, and I agreed. He sent me his address, and then the next morning, I got up early to quickly bathe and apply makeup so that Ethan wouldn't notice the red marks on my skin because of how observant he usually was. I was thankful he was sleepy the night before because he could have easily smelled another man's perfume on me. I always teased him for his sensitive nose before until it became annoying, especially after I started sleeping with Joe. I had to buy a new body spray that was always in my bag so I could use it before going home so Ethan wouldn't detect what I had been doing. I went to Joe's house and I saw a picture there. It was a young, beautiful lady, and his house definitely had the touch of a woman's because of how feminine it looked. Everywhere my eyes grazed, it felt like the woman was probably trying too hard to stake her claim by leaving her things hanging around everywhere. I saw her bra on Joe's bed, but I didn't care at all. Joe and I had sex while lying down on her bra, and I had eventually flung it when it kept sticking into my back. We eventually did work, but after we had sex numerous times, and then somehow even working became a turn-on because we were both working on the document very naked. It was easy to get comfortable in my skin with Joe, the way I had never done with Ethan, perhaps because he noticed every little mark on my body and it annoyed me. I eventually left Joe's place in the evening after some extra rounds of sex against every surface that seemed interesting. I didn't even feel any pity for the lady who was trying hard to stake her claim. Joe and I continued our affair for over a month, even after we stopped working on the project together. We had finished it and it was a huge success. We were supposed to be back to our normal lives and back to our usual routine, but nothing was the same between us anymore. It was like Joe got even more invested in the little thing we had going on between us, even more than I was. He was always texting, and would have switched to calling if I hadn't warned him against calling, especially when I was home. I didn't want my husband questioning the persistent ringing of my phone. If it was up to Joe, we would have sex every day, and every time we met, because apparently he discovered that he had a weird fetish for married women like me. Apparently, we knew how to have a good time without any attachments. However good I felt that he wanted me that much, it got too much, especially when a cleaner had almost caught us together when she was trying to clean my office and thought no one was in, Because of silent, it had grown, and Joe actually had his hand up my skirt and his other on my mouth to stop me from moaning loudly. When she walked in, we quickly adjusted and pretended like we were discussing work. And she didn't make it look like she saw anything because of how she had maintained her facial expression right from the time she walked in to the time she left us alone again. Joe, apparently not caring too much about being caught, continued what he was doing before she walked in, and I allowed him even after trying to refuse. Apart from the office, his house became our second best location for having sex. I never asked about the lady in the picture, and he never talked about her either, so we kept it strictly at having sex. No other funny business. I had become a perfect liar and a more busy person to Ethan. Regardless of how I felt about him, I didn't want him to find out about my indiscretions. Maybe because I didn't want him to stop looking at me the way he always did, or maybe because I didn't want him to stop fussing over me, even though I counted it as annoying at the time. Actually, the truth will be, I was also in love with Ethan, but I just never admitted it to myself until now that it's too late to. But eventually everything I feared had finally happened. I should have noticed. I would have if I wasn't so invested in keeping my affair with Joe a secret from Ethan and also managing work. I would have noticed that Ethan didn't call me anymore when I was at work. He didn't bring home the flowers he always did for me every time he went out, so he could replace the withering ones and always make me smell fresh flowers. He didn't even bother asking me anything when I got back home. He was barely off his phone and never did the excess things he was always doing with me before. I didn't know it was because Ethan found out. He found out about my affair, and he was putting his revenge in place. I thought that Ethan was just finally becoming a manly man, and I was starting to notice him. I was the one trying to get him to spend time with me, when all he did was ignore me. I even tried arguing with him, but all I got was him walking away, and not even counting me worthy of some explanation, or asking me for forgiveness like he usually did. But instead of seeing the exact reason for his actions, I thought he was finally being the man I had always wanted him to be, and not the fragile nonsense he was before. So the relationship I had with Joe was starting to look uninteresting to me. I was seeing my husband, and all I wanted at that point was him. And then that horrible day had come. That day, a friend had suggested we have brunch so that we could all just catch up and have fun, and everyone agreed to it. So we met up at the friend's place, the one who had suggested the brunch. Ethan arrived separately that day because he didn't even sleep at home that night, and when I kept calling him to ask if I should wait for him at home, thinking he would come home for a change of clothes or something, but I was getting late and the girls were calling me. They were there already and couldn't wait to see me, so I left and went for brunch. Everywhere was lovely, and everyone was reconnecting again. It was so much fun. My girls and I sat at a different table where we commented on everyone and secretly laughed at either their choice of dressing or the new awkward gist we've heard about them before the party. That was all we did while munching on food and drinking wine. And then finally Ethan had arrived. He didn't even come to me. He stood with his friends and they were all laughing while Ethan said nothing in contribution to what they were saying. My friends noticed him and they started laughing at him while calling him the names we've made up for him before, and we all laughed. And then Ethan left his group of friends and headed to take a drink inside. But he had to pass by our table, but he was totally ignoring my friends and I, pretending like he didn't see us. And Sam had called him Beta, thinking he wouldn't understand. Thinking it was just another inside joke between the three of us, and I laughed alongside them. When he walked past us again after getting his drink, they had said it again, and this time it was Eva who said it, and I just laughed again. I thought it was funny. I didn't know that Ethan understood what was going on. I thought that it meant nothing as usual. I literally dismissed what they said. I didn't know it was what was going to cement my doom. Ethan left the party after staying for about 30 minutes, and I felt really angry. He had literally ignored me in front of everyone, and everyone was starting to ask questions. They probably wanted to know where the fawning Ethan had gone. I knew where, but only after the damage had been done completely. Ethan had changed, and only I was blind to those changes. My friends and I decided to have a girls' night at Sam's place. Her live-in boyfriend wasn't around for the day, and she invited us over, so we all stayed overnight talking and jesting, and only fell asleep some hours before 5 a.m. But something had woken me up. My phone kept blowing up, worsening my headaches from too much alcohol the previous night, which I hadn't even had enough time to sleep off yet. But immediately I saw the reason why my phone was blowing up. The hangover cleared up instantly, and I was screaming. Ethan had sent pictures of my texts with Joe to our family group, and also to the general platform we had with our friends. He didn't just send the pictures. Somehow Joe had been able to record Joe and I together having sex. I don't know how he did it, perhaps he paid someone to. But there it was, a video of Joe and I together on the two groups, and my phone was blowing up with different text on both groups. That wasn't even the highlight of the day. I started getting emails and different texts that one precious item after the other was being sold successfully, and then I got an email to vacate the house in a week's time because the house is already on sale. My account was also turning red. Ethan was withdrawing every single dime and transferring it, and the final bombshell had been a picture of the divorce papers on our bed that Ethan had snapped and sent to me with a text written underneath it saying, "Now who is the beta?" before he blocked me. I was screaming and crying at the same time after reading the texts and seeing all the horror unfolding in front of me, and when my friends woke up from all my screams and asked me what was wrong. I explained to them in tears. They were going to see the videos and screenshot anyways, so I had better explain myself and how it all happened before they started judging me like everyone was already doing. They were so shocked and kept staring at me. And Ava had muttered that my husband definitely wasn't a beta, but a real alpha. And then Sam proceeded to throw me out of her house. She made excuses that her boyfriend would soon be back, and she didn't want him meeting me there, especially because he was also on that platform too. I knew that she only wanted to get rid of me so that people wouldn't associate us as being the same people since we were friends. Immediately, I stepped out of her house. She blocked me, and so did Eva. I didn't know what to do, and so I went home. I tried reaching Ethan with another number, but he wouldn't pick up the call or respond to my text. I tried several times to call, but each time it ended with a ding. He was cutting off my calls, and he definitely wanted me to know he saw them and was purposely ignoring them. I texted him too about 100 times, begging him to let me explain, swearing that Joe meant nothing at all to me, but Ethan wouldn't even reply to my texts, even though he was reading them. I've tried several times over this week to get Ethan to talk to me, but nothing at all. It doesn't help matters that I'm now being stigmatized by everyone I ever knew. And there was the fact that I had no job anymore. Ethan had not excluded my workplace out of his revenge plan. He had sent a copy of the video to the management, and since the company rules frowned against having any sexual relationship with a coworker, Joe and I were fired immediately. I remember how heavy my heart and legs had been the day I went to the office to get my things. I couldn't exactly leave it there because my CV was there, and I didn't have another one. The eyes and the loud whispers were just totally horrible. Now I have just one day to move out of the house, except risk being thrown out by the same people who texted me to leave. I have nowhere to go, not with my parents ignoring me and my siblings doing the same. I had no money to rent out an apartment or anything. I just have no hope of surviving the next day or month. I'm absolutely clueless. I don't know how I'm going to live, especially without Ethan in the picture. I don't think I can survive without him. I love him. I know it feels like a lie, but it's the truth. It is what I've spent the last horrible week of my life discovering. I love Ethan very much, and I don't mind losing everything else. I really just don't want to lose Ethan completely. I'm desperate to find anything at all to get into his good books again. You guys have to help me. I really love Ethan, and I feel terrible for the things I've done, and I really want to make amends for everything. How do I do that, guys, please? Update. Hello, Reddits. My life has been a terrible one since the day Ethan walked away, and it seems to only get worse by the minute now. I thought that losing the house and everything else was the most horrible thing to have happened. But I'm discovering faster now that losing material possessions isn't the same as losing that one special person. I've discovered that these feelings of emptiness and pain that comes with losing that one special person is the most horrible thing on earth. I keep remembering everything I have done and how much pain I caused Ethan to make him into the person he has now become. This revengeful being that is now the replacement of the once loving man I've always known before. I keep remembering that day when I laughed while my friends made fun of him, calling him a beta. Now I know that I was only being stupid laughing at something like that, especially to someone who already knows everything I thought I could keep hidden. I regret everything I've ever done to Ethan. I regret ever thinking that he wasn't a man just because he showed me love. I should have appreciated having someone like that in my life. I should have respected him right in front of him and behind him. I should have never let my friends come up with stupid names to compare him with. I should have never taken his love for granted, because now all I'm left with are painful memories of how badly I treated Ethan's love for me. I realize now, only too late, just how important Ethan is to me, now that I don't have any access to him. Living in this cold, empty room with barely enough space to breathe is devastating, especially when the bare room reminds me of all the memories of what I had, but lost out of carelessness and selfishness. It's crazy how much you can miss something just after you've lost it. I miss him so much. I miss his laughter. I miss the way he cares for me, the way he worries about me, the way he had decided so bravely that we weren't going to have kids, especially after discovering my condition and also my refusal to have an adopted child. I miss how he was always putting me first above everything and everyone. I miss just how easy it was for him to love me. I regret losing that. I regret giving him reasons to hate me. I feel awful that Ethan no longer loves me. The thought of him moving on without me, the thought that he would probably meet someone better, the thought that he will forget totally about me, except the one feeling he probably has towards me now. The fact that he will move on with another woman who definitely isn't me hurts like crazy. I wish I had never thought to cheat, especially with a man like Joe, who at the end of the day was nothing but a coward. I remember how he had texted me the day we got fired and threatened to ruin my life just the way I had ruined his, although I didn't even care about his empty threats. What more could ruin a woman who has lost not only her husband and home, but everything else? He wasn't the real man. Joe never was. I cannot believe I kept comparing Joe and Ethan when they were like two parallel lines that could never cross each other. Now I see clearly everything I was blinded to, and I regret that it took me this long to see. When everything's already damaged beyond repair, this feeling of loneliness is the worst. Having no one to talk to or no one to care about you is just terrible. I have no friends. My family are still ignoring me and refusing to have anything to do with me. I have no work to get to, except the part-time jobs that I have to work daily now, because I have no money and need to survive. I wish I had understood just how important Ethan is to me, and had done everything to avoid losing him, including loving him better, and also never cheating. I regret everything I have ever done to hurt Ethan, and this feeling doesn't get better or even go away. Not with you guys waving it over my head. You guys make me feel like the worst sinner on earth. You make me so terrible and disgusted with myself. Your words, even though they are just mere words, were clearly designed to create heavy damage to the mind, and I can tell you for a fact that my mental health is nothing to write home about. Not that I have any home to write anything to, with my parents and siblings ignoring my existence. Ethan had everything, and had given me everything too. He loved me, cared for me, always wanted nothing but my comfort. He was gentle with me in bed and also in every other aspect. Even when we argued, he'd leave so he didn't have to say horrible things back to me the way I had with no filter said to him. But I didn't see all that. I didn't realize how important he was to me until it was too late, and words cannot express just how deeply sorry I am for that. It feels so horrible being me right now, and I wish I could somehow go back into the past and undo the wrongs I've done. But life doesn't do do-overs now, does it? It would be unfair of life to give me a second chance when I have done nothing but ruin the first and only chance I got with Ethan, and there's really no getting past that. If this constant pain and heaviness in my heart is what the rest of my life feels like, I don't think I look forward to the future. It probably promises nothing but darkness, emptiness, and even more pain than I already have. Thanks and goodbye.